But yeah, so this is what I normally work on. This is what I use to make LARPing weapons and of the sort that actually gets paint and glue and knife marks from me cutting things on this mat, to where this is kind of what art looks like whenever you're working on it. Nothing's clean and pristine or anything. And this over here, on this side of the table, is where I prime things. As you can see, I use black primer, and that's where I spray paint it so that I don't get it on the table or anything. Once again, not clean because I work here. But as I said before, having the contrast is really nice, but we're not going to need contrast for this in particular, because this is kind of a less delicate process. So there's the edge of my table. And what I end up using for primer is a spray paint can, which this is Citadel Chaos Black. I use Citadel products because it's at my local gaming stores is what they use to sell things. And therefore, this is the one that I use. I have no really specific reason on why I use this, but the last time I tried something different, it didn't work. It wasn't good. And I've heard reports that primer, like the spray paint primer, doesn't work some of the time. Some of the times that whenever it's manufactured, it works, sometimes it doesn't work. And you can always return it, I imagine. But because of that, some people use a paint-on primer where you take a brush and you just paint it on instead of spraying it on, and that's more reliable. But I find it a little too tedious, so I use this stuff because it's easier. But what you do is just like with normal spray paint, shake it up, pop off the lid, here's the nozzle, and what you do is you hold it, they say right here, holding it from 8 to 16 inches or 20 to 40 centimeters, because it's made by a British company, so they give you both of the measurements because they're nice. So 6 to 8 inches is about to here, and you spray across like this. With the plastic one, it's going to move a little bit, metal one not so much because it weighs more. It's a lot nicer for the metal ones as well, because whenever you're using it, it just feels nice to move things around. Whenever you're moving it to the other side, to spray the other side, don't want to touch at all where you've done before. So I'm just touching where I haven't sprayed yet, because through experience I've found that if I put my finger where I've sprayed the primer already, it's going to leave a fingerprint and I'm going to have to go back over it again, and that kind of sucks. Now, whenever you're spraying it, too little is better than too much, because you can always paint over too little and it'll look fine. But if you spray paint too much, it's going to dumb down the details a little bit. It'll cover up all the details of the miniature and it won't look as nice. So if you haven't completely covered up one side, there's like maybe a little bit of metal showing, a little bit of plastic, don't worry about it, you're good. That's perfectly fine, because too little is better than too much. As you can see, I'm going like up to down or left to right type of thing. You never just want to hold it up there and then just spray, because you'll be getting too much in one spot. Sometimes what I'll end up having to do is whenever it's done drying from the front and the back, I'll have to lay them down on their side and then spray underneath places where I couldn't get to before. There's a little spot under the shield here. There we go. And some people actually like use sticky tack, which I really need to get my hands on someday, where they have like little things of sticky tack and they'll put the base on like a piece of wood or something, just like a little stick of wood, and then they'll hold the stick of wood and they'll just move the miniatures around with the stick of wood and the primer and just be able to spray from all angles. But I've never gotten that stuff before, but I really need to. But I work on a budget, so I haven't really thought about it. It's like if I can make it work, I'll make it work so I don't have to spend any more money than I have to, you know. But this stuff dries honestly pretty fast, so we're just going to wait for it to dry a little bit, and we'll take it from there. We'll get to the painting process, and I'll tell you what paintbrushes and things that I use. Alright, so this is what the miniatures look like after they're primed. It only took about 3 minutes or so in Houston, Texas, in my area, for these miniatures to dry. It might take a little bit longer where you live, but here in my house in Houston, Texas, really only about 3 minutes and this was dry. But as you can see, with these miniatures, I didn't completely cover them in black primer. Let's try and find an example here for you. Everything seems to be pretty decently covered, but you can see like the top of the boots area, it's not completely covered. You can see in right here, over here underneath her shield, but you don't have to worry about that. It's no big problem because of the fact that we'll be painting over it, and you want a small amount of primer as opposed to too much primer. So if you don't cover it completely, that's okay. As you can see with this miniature, there is a little bit uncovered on his sash, a little bit uncovered on his chest there, underneath his pouches on his side, and on the back of his skirt here. It's just slightly not covered completely, which is perfectly okay. It'll look just fine once we paint it, and everything will stay on just fine. In fact, that's more than okay because of the fact that if you have too much on, it pulls out all the details. So by all means, put too less on than too much.